So my name is Mike Lynch. I'm Enrollment Planning Manager with Emerson College. As I mentioned, we're excited to have you here this evening, especially to talk about our media psychology program, a new and unique program that really takes an interesting approach to the study of psychology, but also in the context of media and its impact. So we're really very excited. It's a unique program to undergraduates, I think, and Emerson is one of the first schools in the country to offer such an angle on the study of psychology. So we're very excited about that and to share more about this program with you this evening. So with that said, go ahead and get things started this evening, and I'll turn it over to our faculty to introduce themselves. So I'll kick it over to Na.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Na Amponsa-Dodu. I am an associate professor in the Marketing Communication Department here at Emerson. I teach consumer behavior classes, and I also do research. I do a lot of consumer research, and that's what I'm passionate about. But I'm also the program coordinator for this program, and I'm really excited to kind of share what we are doing and what we hope to achieve with this program and answer any questions you may have. And I'm joined with Eileen. I'll pass it on to her to introduce herself.
Thank you, Na. I'm Eileen McBride. I'm Associate Professor of Psychology at Emerson College, and I am the advisor to the psychology minor. I've been working with Na and others to develop the media psychology program. I will have to say I have a big bias for psychology, so I was very excited that we could develop this really novel and innovative program that combines the psychology courses at Emerson, but also media and arts communications that are such a strength in the college. So I'm excited to chat with you about the program.
Thank you, Eileen. So I'm going to jump in and start talking a little bit about the media psychology program. So the media psychology program is housed within the marketing communication department, but one of the most unique things about this program is that it's really an interdisciplinary program, and so we rely on faculty from the School of Communication, from the Marlborough Institute, as well as the School of the Arts. And so you'll be able to be exposed to different faculty from different areas, so you have a broader grasp of the different options that exist at Emerson, but also be able to hear diverse opinions and thoughts and perspectives on what we'll be trying to kind of communicate through the media psychology program. And that's one of the biggest strengths we have at Emerson. The media psychology program was developed because we understood that there was this niche that we could fill, given what we are capable of with the School of the Arts, what we currently have in terms of our program offering, as well as what we could do with this area that's so new and burgeoning. And so that's why we decided to come together to build this program, to be able to really offer something that would kind of build upon our strengths as a college and offer the best possible program based on media psychology. So I want to talk a little bit about the overview of the media psychology program. So Eileen mentioned this a little bit, but she mentioned that it's truly grounded in psychology and it's quite interdisciplinary. So what we want to actually accomplish with this program is that we want to be able to communicate or showcase how important psychology is really to the understanding of how people use and consume media. So we'll be looking at elements such as how do people think and how do they process information. We'll look at media design in terms of production and consumption. We'll look at relationships that exist between consumers and media. And when I talk about media, I'm not only talking about traditional media as we have it, but also the newer forms of media that exist. And perhaps even newer forms that we don't even know about, because there's always something new that's being developed in the media space. And so we'll look at the relationships that exist between consumers and media in terms of how they interact and engage with media platforms, as well as the media content that exists on these platforms. But we will not only be looking at how people think or how they feel, or even how media is designed. What we'll also be looking at is how do we actually get to these things? What methods would be instrumental to helping us understand how people process information, how they design media, how they consume media, how they can have relationships with the media platforms or media content or even other people on media platforms. So we really want to have these like 4 different aspects to provide a well-rounded view of the media psychology program. So we'll be looking at the foundation, but also looking at different elements that are important and integral to us trying to understand what media psychology really truly is. If I was to explain what is media psychology, the most basic thing would be we are looking at the psychology and how people interact with media in different ways possible. But it's so much more than just thinking about psychology and media. There's so many things we don't even really think about, but we have to keep in mind when we look at how people interact with media or how they even think about media. So this is something we want to do with the program overall. I want to quickly kind of give you a broad sense of the curriculum of the program as we have it. We had our first inaugural cohort this fall semester, and so we are really excited about that. And so in the first year, if you're a student, you would be taking Intro to Psychology, as well as a media psychology specific course. And in the second year, you would also be taking a couple of classes that are still communication-based, but also social psychology-based. And then we also have methods of inquiry, which kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier about looking at the best ways to actually get to understanding how people interact with and consume media. And some of the courses that we'll be having our students take would be at least one research methods class, which exists across the different schools that we have. Students will also have the opportunity to take one media content class. And I've listed a couple that exist. And then in the third year, we have the topics in media psychology class, which is, I think, one of the interesting things about this program, because this course would be a topics course, which means that we will be able to be flexible with trying to build a course that is up to date with what's currently happening in the society. We'll try to make sure that we are meeting whatever needs exist and speaking to what's happening. And so we'll be current and trendy in that way, that we are able to make sure that we are doing what needs to be done and not lagging behind what's currently happening within the society at large. And in the fourth year, we'll have the big media psychology capstone course, which will hopefully be a culmination of everything that you as a media psychology student have been able to kind of take in from the first year through to the fourth year. So this is where you'll be able to showcase your skills by hopefully working with a real client and trying to translate as much as possible all the different elements that are relevant to what your client needs in that moment when you're taking the capstone course. You also have the opportunity to take 4 elective courses across the college, and Again, this speaks to one of the strengths we have at Emerson, because we have so many different amazing programs and courses that are being offered across the college. And so as a student, we will be able to kind of see where your interest lies and guide you in a way that allows you to charter your own path, so to speak. And on the next slide, I'll show you a little bit what I mean by that. So if you are someone who is more interested in the content aspect of the media psychology program, you may be more interested in how people are shaped by the content that they are exposed to, or what it means when they are on different platforms. A couple of classes that you could take, or electives you could take to complement what your interests are, would be pop culture and communication, the School of Communication, as well as the social media connectivity interactivity buzz class that's offered within the marketing communication department. And if you have more of a lean towards psychology and you want to be more focused in that aspect, you could take some other psychology classes such as cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, or other psychology courses that exist, that as long as you are able to take the courses, and we'll guide you along the way, every step of the way, to make sure that you're meeting the required requirements that you have to be able to take the courses. And for the School of the Arts, you will be able to take some classes such as media arts and culture, or introduction to interactive media, if that's what you're more interested in terms of the actual way that we can design or develop communication or content on media platforms, so to speak. And so in addition to that, we have so many different minors at Emerson that you can choose to take to complement what you're interested in within the media psychology program. So we really think that this program it's a great way to fulfill your interests, but also be able to do other things that complement the interests that you have. So you're not only just sticking to media psychology, but you could expand and broaden and add to what you already have as a media psychologist. So now I'm going to pass it on to Eileen, who'll talk a little bit about the student learning outcomes.
Thank you, Na. I should have mentioned when I was introducing myself that I teach across the psychology curriculum. So we have a range from introduction to psychology, which is part of this program, right through to specialist topics like abnormal psychology. Now I mentioned developmental, cognitive, social, and then up to higher level classes. We have a cool class on the relationship psychology, which most of us could do with. And then also I teach a class called Narratives of Disorder that looks at, something is popping up on the screen here, hold on. Narratives of Disorder, which is about the way we talk about mental health issues. My background is clinical psychology, and so I tend to teach classes around mental health. But in terms of media psychology and the learning outcomes, as you can see from the curriculum, that there's a focus on building foundational skills and then specializing in understanding how psychological concepts apply to media. And so the student learning outcomes are what we hope that you will achieve as you make your way through this program. So first of all, we want you to be able to understand how core concepts and theoretical foundations of psychological science can be applied to understand how people interact with and consume and produce and are impacted by media. And so you can see that in the early part of the first classes, and as your introduction to psychology and your foundational course in media psychology. We're also hoping that people will be able to analyze psychological and social impacts of media and technology, and we can think about that at the individual level. So when an individual is on social media, how is that affecting things like well-being, self-esteem, even behavioral practices. We can also think of that applied to groups, society and culture. And as Na was saying, we're in such a, I think things are changing so quickly, and how individuals and groups and cultures are interacting with media. So that's an important aspect of the program. We also are interested in training you to do effective research and to ask questions regarding how media is used and its impact. And so that allows you to have an introduction to quantitative, which are more kind of traditional methods of research, and then qualitative research methods that help you address problems, evaluate claims, also help you think critically about media and its impact. And then we also, as a component of the course, hope that you develop your own competency in media, information, and digital literacy. So again, this is something that's almost part of a critical thinking, actually, understanding how to evaluate media, how to think about sources, think about evidence, and so that literacy is part of what will develop as you work your way through this program. So I think we have a few more coming up as well. Okay. So Emerson has these, as a college, has what are called the 5 C's of, in terms of learning outcomes for all students, and they involve 4 of them that are mentioned here. So developing creative and critical thinking, developing the ability to collaborate, and developing strong communication skills. The 5th C that you would add in there for Emerson in general is also to civically engage. So this course absolutely plays into what Emerson in general hopes for students. And these are develop this ability to think creatively, to be able to critically analyze what you're interacting with. Collaboration, I can't stress enough, being able to work with others and to learn from others. That's part of the strength of Emerson's interdisciplinary approach. And then strong communication skills. Emerson is well known for being a communication school, and that's a goal of this program. Because of the positioning of the media psychology degree, we have a lovely School of the Arts and School of Communication, and right in the middle, I think of it as in the middle, Marlborough Institute of Liberal Arts. And so the way the media psychology it's based in the School of Communication, but it speaks to all these other departments, the School of the Arts and the Marlborough Institute. And so one of the opportunities in the degree is to try to integrate these various approaches in these schools into and to think about how media psychology applies in different fields. And then importantly, and this probably is where we could talk about the civically engage, the degree helps you to think about the ethical and social implications of media. So not just thinking about how we consume or how we market through media, but also how media affects communities, how it affects diversity, equity, inclusion, and then something really important also, which is belonging, a sense of belonging. And then finally, our goal would be that you would be able to use media and technology effectively, sensitively, and inclusively while you engage in local and global communities. So this is thinking about yourself through this process of learning about psychological foundations, learning how to communicate and collaborate, that developing media literacy, you become an effective, sensitive, and inclusive user and producer of media.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you.
And kind of to jump off of what you said about global and local, when we think about a media psychology program, we want you to be able to get the best possible experience academically in terms of the program offerings, the courses that we have. We also want you to be able to actually engage with other people within the college. So a number of things you can think about is either having being a part of a student group or a co-curricular, and we have a couple that I just listed here because they could be a good fit for you to think about as a media psychology program, but this is certainly not exhaustive. There's different opportunities that may fit your interest depending on what your interests are, but being engaged through a student group or a co-curricular enables that you are meeting other people, but you're also being involved in something that would be beneficial to you long term, because we are able to kind of apply what you learn into real world applications. And to briefly talk about this, Emerson, every student has the opportunity to go abroad at one of our campuses. And so when Eileen was talking about being using media effectively, when you go outside of Emerson, you'll be engaging with people from different communities, from different cultures. And so we hope that throughout this program, you'll be well-versed or versed enough to be able to kind of critically think about how you do consume content, but also produce it or even share content or any kind of media really with the people that you come across. And something else I wanted to talk about is that within the program as well, we don't just want you to just come to school and not feel like you belong here. And so we have different opportunities to engage with each other. We have some marketing communication department programs, but events, but also media psychology community events that will be launching soon to make sure that everybody feels like they are part of something of this program. And so we do have that happens that you're free to engage with. And we also have some marketing communication, professional developmental series that is offered every semester. Something that's actually happening this Thursday is a pro series where if you're interested in learning more about Adobe Illustrator, we have someone who's going to kind of take you through and show you. And so we have different opportunities for you to grow your skills in other areas as well that may be beneficial to building you up as someone who is competent in what you're learning. And so we also have the marketing communication speaker series where we invite different people from different industries to kind of just share with us what they are doing and how that ties into the marketing comm department, but also in this particular situation, the media psychology. At the end of the day, what we want to be able to do is that you come out of this program being marketable in a sense, because we want you to be the best candidate regardless of where you choose to go. I have here a few options of the employment opportunities. If you were to be a graduate of the media psychology program, you can engage with different organizations in so many different ways. So media research is one of them. You can work in marketing or consulting or advertising. User experience is an important field that is growing every day, or user experience research, user experience design. That's an important field. You can even work in education, or healthcare, or policy making, or within any creative enterprise. If you would like to do more schooling, you want to pursue graduate studies, you could pursue marketing graduate programs, or art-related fields, or even psychology graduate programs. So there's really a lot of different options that you can go into once you complete and graduate from the program. And this is just a few of them, but again, it's not exhaustive of the potential that you as a graduate of the media psychology program can actually pursue. And I think that is all for me and Eileen.
All right. Well, thank you, Na and Eileen. It's very informative, very helpful information. So now's a great time to open up the floor for the remainder of our info session this evening to just the questions that you all have. I know there are quite a few that were submitted prior to this evening when you signed up, and I think some of those maybe perhaps have been answered by the information shared this evening, but certainly plenty of others that we can talk about. And it looks like we've got a few in the Q&A box already. But by all means, if you have any questions that you would like answered live, we can go ahead and take care of those. So start adding those into the Q&A box if there's anything that you'd like to learn more about. So I think the first question we had was what do you believe can be possible careers that can come from this program? So I think, yeah, that's obviously what we just finished on, but I'm not sure, Na or even Eileen, if there's any additional thoughts you might have on like specific types of job titles or things of that nature. I know we talked kind of broadly about outcomes and potential, but any sense of or anything you want to add to what we talked about in the presentation?
Sure. I honestly believe that like this program will equip you with enough knowledge and skills that you would be able to really fit in so many different organizations. So even if it's like a media focused company, there are smaller media designed companies that exist that look at trying to get specific media in front of consumers. Or if you are someone who wants to be working on the back end, I mentioned user experience. I think being a user experience researcher or a user experience designer, that is very tangible things that you can do based on what you understand or are able to translate into these different positions. But you will be able to have some foundation that allows you to be able to communicate exactly how you understand what people do or how they interact with media, and this can, I think, be a good fit for any of the areas that we talked about, really. So again, depending on your interest, if you're more into the content production side of things versus maybe the more evaluation aspect of it, there are organizations that may want to do campaign evaluations or evaluations of interventions or something like that. And so if you are you have the research skills and you are able to kind of try and make sense of how people are understanding the campaigns that are out there, you could easily go into that direction if that's where you choose to go. So I really do believe, depending on your interest, you will be able to kind of at least take courses that build up your understanding and skill set so that you'll be able to go in the direction that you choose to go. And that's why I will be here advising you along with the advising office throughout your journey. I'll be here to advise you as well, just kind of make sense of what you want to do and how best we can get you to where you want to be.
Can I just add also from a, thinking about Now talked about if you wanted to continue your education beyond your degree at Emerson, the program has a lot of strength in terms of you will have a very good foundation in psychological science and also research. So that places you in a really good position to choose a graduate program and to apply for a graduate program. And now mentioned the media and the marketing and the content production and analysis. I think also in education and healthcare, increasingly we're using media, for health communication, there's some really interesting research on the use of even things like text messaging to support health outcomes and behavioral outcomes. So one of the great things about the degree is you can you have your core courses that now describe, but then you can choose a little bit of your own direction. So if you wanted to go take on some electives in health communication or even some of the health issues in classes in psychology, depending on what your interests, or developmental psychology that might be applied to education. So there's a lot of good foundation and core skills, and then opportunity for you to take a path that leads you into your chosen area of work, I think.
Very good. Thank you both. Question for either of you, Eileen or Na. How do you think a public relations minor would fit with this major?
I think it would be a great fit because I think public relations is under communication, right? And so when we think about media, we can think of how it can be used as a communication tool in different ways. And so if you are interested in public relations, but you want to have public relations as a minor, it's just like showcasing a different aspect of what you are able to do with your understanding in public relation policies, principles, and that can also help you. Let's say you choose to work for a think tank, or like what's it called? Those who run for office.
Oh, like a
political campaign.
campaign, yeah.
Political campaign or something of that sort, right? You need to, at least based on my understanding of PR, there's so many ways you can use your knowledge of public relations to be able to communicate better, essentially. And so I think it would be a great fit, especially given that we can think of media as one of the most instrumental tools in communication, regardless of the form it takes. And so like Eileen, you were talking about text messages for health communication, but I think of organizations or brands or nonprofit organizations, even regardless, that put out statements via different platforms. I'm not sure how many people are still putting out statements on their website first, but they may be using other platforms to kind of jump off and then have a space where their statements of whatever policies or values or stands that they have is shared. And so if you have your understanding of how you can really fit into any of these areas based on your understanding of media as well. So I think it will be a really good fit.
Very good, thank you. So there's another question about the teacher or the student to teacher ratio for the major. So the overall college is about 13-1 or so, at least the last time I looked. And I believe we brought in about 20 new first-time students this year, so not an overwhelmingly large, cohort of students. So do you all have a sense of, class, how those ratios might impact like class sizes and the student experience from that perspective? For media psychology specifically.
For media psychology, I think that at least right now for the 1 to 20 student ratios, especially for the more advanced media psych courses, I don't think it would impact it negatively. But in terms of the 13:1 ratio, especially depending on which courses you take, you may be exposed again to different faculty across the college, and so you may encounter smaller classes in that sense. So you would have like a breadth of experience in being in smaller classrooms, but also 20 to, well, as a teacher, I don't think 20 is a large class size. And so I think you'll be able to get the best out of whatever course you take, given the current ratio that we have. I don't anticipate that it's going to be bigger than that, at least currently. And so even if as we expand, we'll definitely hire more faculty to be able to meet student needs and expectations. And so I think what we currently have, we are still able to provide, or we will be able to provide the best experience possible for you as a student.
Yeah, I could just say also something about the way psychology classes are structured at Emerson. So they are housed in the Marlborough Institute, so you, as a media psychology major, will be in the School of Communication taking specialized courses in media psychology. And then you will join some other students and in, for example, Introduction to Psychology or Social Psychology. And it's a bit of a tradition in psychology. The Intro to Psych is a gigantic class, but at Emerson, it's actually kind of contained as a class of around 30. And that fits very well with the kind of content and the conversations and how that class is set up. That's a very comfortable size for Intro to Psych. And then as you move through into a higher level class, a 200 level, the number in the class will go down. And when you take a 300 level, which is our most advanced class, that's usually has 20 students in it or less. And those are very I think those are very manageable, like Naz said, manageable class sizes. And Emerson as a whole has it feels like a small community. You know, professors know their students well. And so I think those class sizes those are caps that won't get any bigger and are very, you'll be able to really get to know your classmates and also your instructor very well.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And I know, being a newer program, we may not have had students really exploring this question yet, as far as the current students, but, do you foresee the ability for students to be able to double major with media psychology and say, another program like writing or publishing or something like that, like the WLP program? Do you foresee the ability for double majoring, or is that something that you feel at this point would be more challenging given the structure of the program?
At this point, it might be a little challenging, but I don't. I think that as the program grows, we'll be able to certainly offer the opportunity to have students double major with other majors.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine there would be limitations based on just like there are for
right,
longer standing existing programs as well, like, for instance, musical theater and something else. That's just not something that can be double majored in, as an example, given the structure of the musical theater program. So it sounds like exploring those avenues, but we're not maybe quite there yet. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
And we should also, I don't know if this helps, but we have a very strong collection of minors that really, and so in the Marlborough Institute, for instance, there's obviously minors all across the college, which can really strengthen your major and complement your major. And in the Marlborough Institute, there's a range of what are called liberal arts minors, philosophy, gender studies, history. I think there's a pre-law minor, possibly. There's sociology. So there's a really nice range that could, as you're thinking about what you want to achieve with your major, you could have a minor, like as someone mentioned, a PR minor that would complement the direction you want to go with your media psychology.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of minors in the psychology minor, Eileen, maybe you could talk about this one a little bit more. If a student is certainly intrigued by the idea of media psychology, but maybe they're also debating about other potential majors as well, or even maybe an interdisciplinary studies major for that matter. What's sort of the difference? So at this point in time, we don't have a media psychology minor, but we have a psychology minor. So can you maybe just kind of give a little bit of perspective on that? Like if they're torn and thinking like, what's sort of the difference for them between, say, media psychology as the major, or do I put psychology with something else?
I'll try it. I hope I can answer this in a sensible way. So, so if you are, the way I would think about it is if you have a psychology minor, you are taking 4 classes in psychology, starting with intro and then moving up and including an upper level class in psychology. So that's a kind of pure focus on psychology. In the major, if you're taking psychology in this major, you're still taking actually either 3 or 4 psychology classes as required. So intro, social, developmental. I think you can remind me now if there's another one. But you then have I think the benefit of you are then taking specialist courses that are psychology classes, but they're psychology applied to media. And so that's a more expansive and more specialized course of study. And because you have taken so many psychology classes plus your research classes, you could still say if you wanted to study at a graduate level, you would still be equipped with that collection in your media psychology major to apply for even a pure research degree in psychology as a graduate student, if that was your interest. I don't know if that makes the distinction well enough. So one is the media psychology minor is actually, is a really gives you core skills and knowledge and foundations in psychology. The media psychology major builds on that and kind of expands into then the specialist knowledge of how psychology is applied to media. And so you're being so I think that's a very different decision that you're making. And the media psychology major is equipping you in a very much more specialist way than the minor. I don't know if it could ask me other questions about that if I haven't explained it fully.
Sure. Yeah, if anyone has any more deep, but that makes sense to me. So thank you for that. So here's a question from a student that wanted to know a little bit more about if they applied to and got admitted to the honors program. How would that fit with media psychology? I don't know if you want to respond to that one or.
I'm not too familiar with the honors program, but I can certainly find out and get back to you about that.
Yeah.
If it will be a good fit as well.
Yeah, I am a little bit less, also not 100% sure, but I feel that students get admitted to the honors program from different majors, and it really is its own community in a sense within. So people have the community of their own major, but then they have specialized classes that help them develop, for example, an honors thesis where they can devise a topic of their own interest and get support in creating a fairly sophisticated study. There are a small number of separate honors classes that are fairly rigorous and academic, and so I think that's an excellent option if someone would like to have that research and writing component as well, support for that.
Yeah, so it sounds like at this point, you don't see a reason why there's any restrictions within media psychology that should prevent a student from being able to do that.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. And yeah, and Eileen, and to your point, yeah, just so students know, so the honors program, from an academic perspective, it shouldn't impact your major really quite as much, because as you were mentioning, the core courses, not all of your liberal arts courses, but a portion of your liberal arts courses are replaced by the honors seminars, which, as
Yes.
you have already mentioned, are
Yes.
sort of a bit more intense and drill down a little bit perhaps deeper than some of the traditional liberal arts programs. And then it's really the capstone experience, that the thesis experience, that from what I gather, students, depending on what they're doing, but say if you're writing a paper, I've heard typically 60, 70 page papers wouldn't be unusual at the end of that process. So
there's also an opportunity for really creative work in that. So you can have, the academic paper, but you could write a screenplay, you could put on a performance. There's also creative writing, poetry, and so on. So there's the academic rigor, but also kind of opportunities for creative expression in the honors thesis.
Very good, thank you. So there's a question related to student if they're taking AP psychology, and how that might apply. So I can give you the general policy at Emerson is basically for AP coursework, we would be looking for you to receive at least a score of at least 4 or better on the exam, so 4s and 5s. In order to award credit, if we get a copy of your official test scores, of course, our registrar will apply that credit typically over the summertime, since I know the test scores usually, especially any exams you take the end of senior year, we typically don't have until sometime in July. But we do apply that credit once it's indicated you're able to bring in up to 32 credits, either by exam or by dual enrollment, if you happen to take dual enrollment coursework at a local college that has worked with your high school, for instance. So I guess the question maybe that would be worth asking to our faculty, so Eileen or Na, from your perspective, if say a student earned credit for intro to psychology, so that's one of the foundational courses in our major, would there be an expectation that the student could then not take that as part of the program, or do we feel like it would still be important for them to get that baseline experience at in our program?
So I think that we I think the same practice would happen with the psychology minor. If someone has a 4 or a 5 on AP psychology, that we consider that equivalent to introduction to psychology. So they can they don't have to take that course. There's and now you can tell me if you think that would still apply in media psychology. Technically they would have covered the same ground in terms of introduction to the discipline, and then they would be taking their foundational media psychology class, so they would still be with their community of majors in the first year. Yeah. So just from theory and so on, I think that should be equivalent, and then as long as they are getting that first year course in media psychology with their classmates, I think that would work.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think that makes good sense. And of course they get the credit, but they can then, if they so choose, could sort of apply towards looking at another course they might fulfill that might be of interest to them.
Yes, and that AP Psych at that level acts as a prerequisite for other psychology classes. So if they wanted to, they could look around the psychology curriculum that for the first year and choose something that's not beyond what's required for the media psychology, but something that interests them. If they would have access to all the psychology classes then. Very
good. Sounds good. We actually have a question from a student about internship opportunities, and what do we anticipate in terms of internship opportunities for the media psychology program? Yeah, I was gonna say, Na, if you want to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So I think that our students will have, I think Emerson has a great career services office that keeps students updated with internship opportunities, and will definitely be working closely with the career services office to make sure that um, we are able to kind of communicate what our students may be looking for, and if they are able to have any possible internships in their network or that they might know of that will be useful for our students, and then we can communicate that to our students. But I think that yes, you will have the opportunity to take internships uh, through this program. And one of the things that I will say is that usually, as much as we can, we do try to invite people from the industry into our courses, regardless of which course it is, typically. And so that is also an opportunity to network with people, and they may share the internship opportunities that they have available, and that's also a way to kind of get access to information that you may not necessarily get from the career services department, perhaps. But we will definitely have internship opportunities because we think is very important for every student to at least have the chance to see what it would look like, uh, depending on what they are interested in, see what it would look like to work as someone in, I don't, even if it's media planning or media research or user experience research or even policy research, something of that nature. But we hope that our students get the opportunities to have internship.
Very good. We did have a couple of pre-submitted questions that related to some admission and application questions. So I did want to mention that as well. So we do have students had asked about the potential for transferring into as a transfer student from an outside college or university. Would they be able to transfer in either spring or fall? And so just to let folks know, currently we're not accepting outside transfers into the program. That's something we do want to do. And we're working towards that, but being that it is certainly a new program with just our first class coming in now, we do want to make sure we build out the appropriate curriculum, et cetera, to make sure that when students are able to transfer in, that they've got the coursework they need to, of course, complete their degree in a timely manner once they get to Emerson. So I would say on that one, it's a more to come, hopefully sooner than later, but we're still in the process of sort of building that the guide rails, if you will, or the tracks for transfer students. So it's hopefully something we'd like to see in relatively near future, but I would say for this coming academic year, I would not anticipate that transfers from other colleges and universities would be able to participate in the program or apply to it. There's also sort of a question related to acceptance rate, and if a student was, say, a pretty good, strong, maybe 3.5 or better, what does it take to kind of get into the program? How would you be perceived? And one thing or evaluated, and one thing I'll say is, generally speaking, Emerson as a whole, we're generally looking for students that have been academically successful. They've challenged themselves in their curriculum in high school. If you've had an opportunity to take advanced coursework, whether that be honors, AP, IB, dual enrollment, et cetera, we certainly do encourage that. So we're looking closely at how you've performed over the course of your 4 years of high school, or at the time we're looking at it, 3+ years. We don't require test scores, so SATs or ACTs. If you take them and you've got a score that you'd like to share, by all means, feel free to do so, but it's not expected or required. And then we're going to spend a good amount of time learning more about you. And one thing I'll say with our approach is it's a holistic approach. So we're not just looking at the numbers. We're also looking at who you are as an individual, what we think you might be able to bring to not only our media psychology community, but the Emerson community as a whole. And conversely, how do we feel like Emerson could Emerson as a community provide you with all the resources and things that you'd need to be a successful student and ultimately graduate. So we are paying attention to your recommendation letters, your extracurricular activities, leadership, honors awards, part-time, summer jobs, all the things that you do outside of your studies. We certainly are curious to learn more about that. We spend time reading your essays. And like I said, just really trying to get to know you more as an individual. So it's a really sort of comprehensive look. Generally speaking, it's a pretty competitive major. I would say last year we had quite a few applicants and wound up with a class of about 20. So it's fairly competitive, but I'd say generally speaking, if you're a good solid, B+ to A- range student or better, all the other parts of your application look nice and strong. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be in a good position for consideration. So just a little bit about a couple of admission related or applicant related questions. There is a question here related to, and maybe this might be the last one for the evening because we're coming up right against 8 o'clock. But could we explain more about how this program might work with studying abroad? And I, again, can talk in general about Emerson study abroad program opportunities, but Eileen, I'm not sure if you all anticipate opportunities that might be potentially program specific down the road. Again, I know things are relatively new now, but we do have, for example, I'll tell folks more about it, our summer pathways program opportunities. So students typically study, I would say, in the range of about 3 to 4 weeks during the summer, somewhere around the globe. And it tends to be focused on core, like a core idea or even a course within one of our academic disciplines that obviously going to a specific part of the globe kind of really helps to sort of enrich that learning experience. So it's sort of like, I'll use an example. It could be screenwriting in Greece. It could be for our business of creative enterprises, it's going to Sweden and learning more about their business concepts and models and visiting companies over there like IKEA, et cetera, that sort of thing. So it's tying in sort of that learning experience with an actual course. And then we also have some larger, longer term experiences. So one would be our castle program. So it's Castile Wells. So we actually have a 14th century castle in the Netherlands. And students can spend a semester there, typically in their second year, sometimes in their third year, but you spend a semester, you take a variety of courses, typically 4 courses while you're there. But the interesting thing they also do is they limit the academic week to Monday through Thursday. So they provide 3-day weekends intentionally with the idea of students kind of using the castle as their launching point to go, explore other parts of particularly Europe, I'd say mostly, since it's only 3 days, but but it's that opportunity to really get out there, explore other places, cultures, experiences as part of that opportunity studying in the Netherlands. And then we also have, although I guess I wouldn't call it abroad, we have our Emerson Los Angeles program as well, which typically is senior year. That's a semester that you live at our campus or at our campus in LA. Take a couple of courses, but while you're there, one of the primary things you're doing is also engaging in an internship experience. So students will typically do that, and the internship will typically be 4 to 8 credits, depending on how many hours a week you're working that internship. And then you would just backfill with 2 or 3 courses, depending on your, the number of credits you earn from your internship. But it's very, again, experiential. So those are some of the main opportunities, but there's other things that pop up through the various programs that I think students have the opportunity to explore, and it could be very local. My daughter's actually an Emerson grad in political communication. One of her classes, they did a little trip for a day to go see Bernie Sanders talk back during the 2020 presidential cycle, primary cycle. So they went up to New Hampshire for a day with one of the classes. Sometimes it's a week-long trip around the globe or somewhere in the country that could be tied to a meeting, or I'm sorry, now I'm the one blanking out now on what I'm trying to say, but like a conference, for instance. So like our faculty are tied to various conferences and partnerships with other institutions around the globe. So maybe it could be a week-long opportunity to go travel to Barcelona in Spain. So things of that nature. So Emerson's a very globally oriented institution, and so we're always looking for ways to find students to have those connections, whether it's a couple of days, a week long, or a semester. So that's my take on it. But Eileen, I'm not sure if there's anything else you'd mention related to media psych specifically that might be worth considering for students, or
Not at this moment, but I also wanted to just touch on include the DC program as well. It's also kind
yes.
of experiential, where you
Thank
get
you.
to do internships in DC. We have a program there, kind of similar to the Emerson LA program, but yeah. I said not really, because depending on what your interests are, you could see something in any of these programs that we've talked about or was mentioned, but it might not be program level specific saying, yeah, oh, you should go do this. But depending on your interest, you may see opportunities in these different areas for sure.
Excellent point. All right. Well, with that, I think we've finished off all the questions and we've gone slightly over. So thank you for sticking around for a couple more minutes. If you do have any questions along the way after tonight, by all means, don't hesitate to reach out to us, or you can always contact the admission office.
I'll put my back on there. I'll put my information back on there.
And yes, and thank you. And Eileen's information as well. We'd be happy to assist with any questions along the way, and look forward to continuing to working with you all as you navigate your college search process. Have a good night, all.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.